Welcome to Emerging Franchise Brands, the podcast that introduces you to the visionary founders of America's fastest growing franchise opportunities. We'll also hear from industry pros as they share insights on what it really takes to achieve the elusive milestone of 100 plus locations. I am your host, Frank Fiume, founder of I9 Sports, and my 20-year journey from inception to acquisition has given me a unique perspective on how to succeed in franchising. Join me as we welcome today's guest. Before I start today's show, I have exciting news for founders, CEOs, and franchise brand presidents. Join me January 14th through the 16th, 2025 in Tampa for the first ever Emerging Franchise Brands live event, an exclusive opportunity designed just for you. It's my blueprint for success at every stage of franchising, one I wish I'd had, packed with real-world solutions and strategies to solve your challenges today and prepare for those you'll face tomorrow. Space is limited, so head over to emergingfranchisebrands.com to secure your spot today. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. On today's show, I have the CEO of Salty Dawg Pet Salon plus Bakery, Sally Facinelli. Sally, how are you today?
Good. Hi, everyone.
Sally, I was struggling when the company name, my New York accent was going to come out like big time. I knew I was going to have to think about this before I spoke because I knew I was going to say Salty Dawg because it would be the way that I would end up saying it if I was back home.
So you do you.
All right. Anyway, I got through that. I was stressing a little bit, but anyway, why don't we talk about Salty Dawg? And you've been around franchising for 20 plus years. We won't say the exact number, right? No, but you've been part of Salty Dawg now for quite a bit. This is an emerging franchise concept, though you are certainly, I consider you a franchise pro. So if you would share with the audience what Salty Dawg is and what led you to being part of the company.
All right, awesome. So Salty Dawg Pet Salon plus Bakery is a brick and mortar pet grooming franchise. We're an emerging brand, of course. And we also have bakery and retail. Now, no, our franchisees do not bake any items. It's just like cookies, treats, cupcakes, things like that. I have vendors for all of it. No cooking skills needed. That is a question I get all the time, actually. They're like, do we need to learn how to cook dog cookies? I'm like, no. But fun fact, they are almost all of them human grade. There is the occasional like bones and things like that. We don't want humans chewing on bones, but human grade. We're really humanizing the pet experience. That's our focus.
And as a former dog owner, we know that we will do anything for our pet, and we will spend an unlimited amount of money to make our pet happy.
People are spending more money on their pets than they do on their children, which is amazing. Usually they're having pets, not children. That's the latest thing. That's why the industry is growing it's just booming.
It is an incredible industry. How did you get started working for the company?
So a fellow partner of ours, Gary Ratner, actually found me at Springboard, I think 3 Springboards ago. I'm like, wait, we just have one. So he found me and he knew I was looking at getting back on the franchisor side of things. I've been an advisor and working on the supplier side for a while now. And I was interested in finding a brand I could get passionate about and get behind. And he found me, and it took about 9 months of talking before I finally came over and started with the brand last July. So July of 2023 is when I started.
Yeah, we go way back. You and I met in IFA years and years ago when you were a franchise supplier. And now it's got to be totally different being on the other side of the fence now as a franchisor and now CEO of this emerging brand.
Well, it's taking me back to the start. So fun fact, my first 2 brands in franchising were franchisors. One was not a franchise in the U.S., but I moved overseas to open up their multiple master locations, but most predominantly in the UK. And then when I came back to the US, I worked with Aussie Petmobile when they only had 13 locations. So I had a lot of fun. That's where I started. I fell in love with franchising, and I just couldn't leave since then. So
I understand Salty Dawg started in 2018. Can you kind of share the origin of the company?
I can share a little bit of the origin. I wasn't involved in the very beginning of it, but John Kansky, the late John Kansky, was a multi-unit franchisee of Paul Mitchell, the schools. He had 7 Paul Mitchell schools. He went to Win Claybaugh, and they just had a really bad experience. Him and his wife had a bad experience with their dog, and they're both in the hair industry. They came back. The dog, first of all, had a terrible cut, came back. It was all shaky and nervous, and they were like, what happened to our baby, right? So they ended up coming up with this concept of how can we make a more human-like experience, a more pleasurable spa-like experience for the pet. And then the pet parent, of course, is a much happier pet parent. And so when Claybaugh and John Kansky started, the ideation, they built the first location and tested a bunch of stuff out. And then when they were ready to start selling and, really build the franchise last July is when they brought me in.
Okay. So was franchising like part of the initial plan right from the get-go?
It was, yes. Because when Claybaugh, so he's the co-founder of Paul Mitchell, the schools, with John Paul DeJoria of Paul Mitchell. So already familiar with franchising, John Kansky, multi-unit franchisee, they built this with the plan to build it for, long-term franchise growth.
Okay. Now, Sally, you've been in franchising for a while. Like I said, you've seen good brands and you've seen some bad brands, right? Let's be honest.
Seen a few.
You've seen a few. And we all know that to succeed in franchising, it's not easy. We've all heard the statistic that, 400 new franchisors start every year and there's 400 that are exiting every year or somewhere in that neighborhood. So I bet it really took a lot for you to be impressed by a brand. What led you to Salty Dawg that you said, yeah, I believe in this brand? What made them different?
For me, everybody is about people, processes, product, right? I'm all about that, of course, but it's people and culture I think are the most important, less so the product. You can have the most amazing product on the market or service, right? But if you don't have people and culture, you can fall flat. So what I really fell in love with the people behind it. I love the culture that comes down from Paul Mitchell. Like we really bring the culture in from Paul Mitchell, the schools. And I was literally just yesterday at their conference, and it's just amazing because it's very inclusive. People find a home when they come there. They are passionate. The passion is there, right? And so that's what I really loved. And of course, pets, one booming industry. You can't go wrong there. Love pets myself. So that was great. And then the brand itself, like it's sexy. It's fun. I can work with this. Like I wear this hat around and people are like, are you salty today? Yes, I am the OG salty.
I'm salty every day.
It's a little bit sweet because we do have that trademark as well, but.
Oh, do you? That's great. One of the things about Salty Dawg that you shared with me before we started recording is the strategy for growth. And I understand that an area rep or area development strategy is part of the plan for Salty Dawg, and that we've got a couple of franchise owners that are now area reps. What led you guys to going in that direction? And I say that because, just kind of preface it by saying a lot of the folks in the audience here are fellow emerging franchisors. They're founders, CEOs, brand presidents, as well as people looking obviously to buy a franchise potentially. But as a way of expansion, some of these founders are thinking, is area development a way for me to go of selling an area? And what kind of led you guys to deciding to go that as opposed to just the single mom and pop franchise location model?
Okay, so that's a great question. And I'm going to preface it with this. I don't believe everybody should do it because if you go down that model without having the knowledge, you can really fail. I had thought about it prior to just doing it now, but I did have personal experience in that. We went through a acquisition merger in officially August 1st of 2024. And the company that acquired us that's what they've done. They've done like 10,000 locations through area rep models or area developer models. And I felt really comfortable with that. To be able to have the backing that I have now, the knowledge, they've done it so many times, right? I can't go wrong. It's not about me. I have this amazing team. But now with that, the franchisees can come in, they can build out their own locations, they can expand to becoming an area rep. And what's beautiful about that is there is this extra layer as an emerging brand of support for the franchisees. So I've got my portfolio company, great. Then there's the Salty Dawg franchisor support level. Then they've got an area rep support person, and that person, my guys are multi-unit franchisees already. They have like a lot of experience that can really help them grow. So now all the franchisees under them have multiple layers of knowledge and support and all of that. I think it's a great way to grow if you get the right people as area reps and you understand what you're doing.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you kind of gave that warning, because for the individual that's just franchised their concept thinking, this is the way that I'm going to grow faster, it's also the way you're going to close even faster. Right?
Yeah.
If you're not doing it right.
Yeah. And I wasn't comfortable before.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. What
I
was
was saying
that?
I was uncomfortable before the merger doing it myself because I don't have the no I have the knowledge now, but not like I do with loyalty brands. So it's amazing to have them.
Well, essentially, for the folks that are listening to this, that are even considering it, you realize that an area rep is kind of a mini franchisor. You need to supply them with literally everything that you're doing yourself in your corporate office. Yes, you do have the back office support and you're providing still a lot of services, but you need to arm the area rep with everything because they're really a earpiece of the franchisor.
They absolutely are. They're the boots on the ground. They're the ones making sure that the franchisees are actually doing what they need to be doing, that they are successful, that have the needs met, everything that they need to be successful, those sorts of things. They help with everything from site location. We do have vendors for that, but they are involved in that process, making sure that they do pick the right sites. I'm involved as well, but they're the extra layer there.
Yeah. And with that area rep strategy, we quickly find out as franchisors that if there's any holes or any gaps in our systems or processes, it gets magnified very quickly, or I should say it comes to light very, very fast.
It sure does. Yeah. We've already found a few and fixed them. So that's great, I welcome that. There's always room for improvement, right?
Absolutely. Well, the other advantage with the area rep model is that because you have those boots on the ground, that you're getting another level of or layer of feedback that you wouldn't normally get with just the single unit franchise.
It's the layer of feedback is really important, not just because it's more feedback. Feedback's great, but because the way they think is very different. So the person that's a single unit franchisee has a completely different way of thinking and perspective, and they're wonderful. You need them. But the area rep, that type of personality, they see the model, they see, where things can be tweaked in a whole different way.
What about in terms of what do you look for in an area rep? I wanted to let's start with the area rep, then we're going to kind of drill down to an individual franchisee. But what are the most common traits you think of a successful area rep for your business, and who is that person? What's their background, and what do you look for?
So what I'm looking for, and so far what we've found, which is amazing, are people that have experience already as multi-unit franchisees. They don't need to have experience being an area rep, but if they are multi-unit franchisees, even if it's multi-brand, multi-unit, that's even better. They usually have a infrastructure already built, which is great, marketing, different things already in their head offices, and they can really leverage that to grow because they need to be operationally focused. They need to be marketing focused and just understanding like the day-to-day grind as well, right? And what it's like to open multi locations at the same time. Somebody that has that experience won't get overwhelmed as somebody that doesn't. Somebody that comes in, their growth will be a little bit slower. I'm looking for people that I'm happy to work with those people as well, but I'm looking for people that are really wanting to grow right and quickly as sustainable as possible.
Yeah. Well, they're playing at a higher level too, because if they have franchise owners that are relying on them, then they're ultimately responsible for making sure that those franchise owners are successful, are happy, and are getting the right coaching. So that's why having that multi-unit franchise or multi-brand experience is probably really critical.
Yeah, and somebody that can look at, their performers or look at their financials, go in and look at the POS systems, all the stuff, and just see where the red flags too, because sometimes you don't know why are they not doing the franchisee, not doing as well as they should be doing. You know what their targets are, you know where they should be hitting, but somebody with that knowledge already can go and look and see little red flags before they become problems and then fix those things, like, hey, you're not getting involved. Like something as simple as you're not getting involved in your community. You need to be more involved. You need to do more of the guerrilla type marketing, right? Go get out there, get the boots on the ground. Those types of things they can notice really quickly.
How big is the territory for an area rep?
So we are working with about 150,000 people per unit for the area rep.
Okay.
Depending on the demographics that are in that area. It's not as simplistic as a number of population, but.
And okay, so now let's drill down to the single unit franchise that you guys offer. First off, how big is the territory for a single unit franchise?
So the model is, again, it's going to depend on the area, but it's radius of 1 to 3 miles or 125,000 population.
Okay. And what do you look for in a single unit franchise operator?
I'm looking for somebody, most importantly, that is a cultural fit, and almost equally, I should say, it's equally as important, is somebody that wants to be involved in their local community. Either they already are or they have a passion. One of my candidates right now is all about, just bringing up her local people, building the community itself, building people in the community, hiring from within the community, all of that, just giving back to the community, whether it's through charities or whatever. So those are the people we really are looking for, because they're the ones that are going to build the following, the passionate following. I'm looking for, for that. That's where our customer base is.
Yeah. The day-to-day responsibilities of a single unit franchise owner, do you expect them to hire a manager, or do you expect them to be running the business day to day and being there? What's your philosophy?
So we do have a couple different types of models. So they may have one franchise location, or they may end up buying multiples. We have a concierge system, and we have groomers. And then we can also have managers or not, depending how they're set up. So if they're set up where they are the day-to-day operator, they don't have a manager, they would be the manager. Okay. And then we also have a concierge team where it's hour per hour. So the concierge team is where the pet parent walks in with the dog. The concierge team takes the dog, checks the dog, make sure it's not covered in fleas, something like that, and then takes it into the groomers. They're also the person that is talking about the bakery and the retail items, CBD products, all of that stuff, the knowledge source, right? That can be the franchisee, or it can be somebody that is hired separately to be, but it's an hour per hour. So if the store is open 72 hours a week, then we need a concierge 72 hours.
Sure. Okay. Tell me what the investment range is for the franchise.
So depending on the square footage and where it's located, it's a roughly 200 to 400 all in. Now that's franchise fee, working capital, build out, everything. I am right now streamlining things and working on, how to value engineer things all the time, making it less expensive to build out. But that's roughly right now, whether it's in Texas or Atlanta or, Illinois, something, it hasn't gone over 400 yet.
Okay. What about the footprint size of a typical location?
So for that cost, it's been about 2,000 square feet for that cost. Now, the ideal footprint that I'm looking to get into is for a single location would be anywhere from 1,300 square feet to 1,700 square feet. The reason we have bigger ones is with the area rep model, if they have a bigger square footage, they can have it as their training center as well, whether it's for the franchisees, for the groomers, things like that. So more square footage helps in that scenario. Okay.
If I'm an area rep, how many franchises am I typically going to have underneath me?
Minimum would be 10. So yeah, anywhere from 10 and up, and it will depend on their, the level of franchisee that they are coming in as.
Right. Okay. Sally, you've been in franchising for a while, like I said. What's been your biggest surprise since you've embarked in this industry?
I never cease to be amazed at the same thing. And you would think after all these years, I have gotten used to it, but I haven't yet. So it's the sheer amount of how even your direct competitor will share their secret sauce. And I say this because I literally just went through this last week. I flew out across the country to Florida, and I met with a direct competitor. We're different business models, but still overlapping quite a bit. And he happily spent time with me, drove me around to a bunch of his locations, just spent a lot of time with me one-on-one. So I'm ever grateful for that. And for industry of franchising in general, it's just that's, across the board, almost everybody's like that.
It is special. It was probably one of my biggest surprises too, entering the industry. I didn't know what to expect back in 2003 and going to my first IFA event and seeing direct competitors, witnessing it, at a round table that were direct competitors sharing detailed information on how they awarded franchises or the techniques that they used in training and stuff. And I was blown away. Probably the last thing I expected.
It's amazing. I think we all realize there's a lot of fish in the sea. Every brand is a little bit different. I'm not trying to replicate somebody else, so we can share that and share best practices. And at the end of the day, if we're good franchisors, we want the franchisees to succeed, in general. And if we can share best practices, that helps.
Yeah. Well, with best practices come mistakes that we've made. And I know I've made my share of them. And I try to learn from my mistakes and not make them twice, right? Would you be willing to share maybe a mistake or maybe a challenge that you faced and how you overcame it?
I can tell you one, again, it was a recent mistake due to being too busy, which is bad. You should never be too busy. I was not a good leader and did not go to my franchise location and see directly what was happening in the franchise location. I relied on employees and what they told me. And because of that, I missed out on very valuable information and I wasn't able to be the leader that I should have been and help that franchisee in the way they needed. I ended up going, but it was delayed. We could have solved the problems months earlier had I gone sooner. And that's actually a recent
Yeah.
thing. And I knew better and I still did it. And you know what? I'm not going to make that mistake again. So,
Sally, I made the same mistake, and I know all of us have. There is something to be said about that face-to-face with franchise owners. They need it. And we get caught up in running the business or trying to work on the business. But sometimes when we get caught up in running the business, we forget who is most important. And there's nobody more important than our franchise owners. And one of the things I try to keep in front of mind is that running a franchise, whether you're the franchisor or franchisee, it is a lonely business, especially for franchisees. And when they don't know when they're not feeling the love and the support and getting that face-to-face time, they make up things in their head, right? We all do that. We try to piece things together and we start coming up with, oh my gosh, here are the things that are wrong and here's all the problems. And just spending a little bit of time with your franchise owners goes such a long way. The goodwill is tremendous.
it really is. It was a valuable lesson to relearn because I knew it, right? And I think that's all, especially we've been doing this a long time. We know these things, but sometimes we got to learn again. I had to.
Yeah.
And it was a good lesson because now like undercover bots, how they go back and they go undercover and they see how removed they are from the business. Well, I think that's something that if we can keep it on front of mind and keep going out there as the leader, doesn't matter you have employees doing it or not, as a leader, keep going out there, keep building that relationship with those people because, franchisees are the most, like you said, the most important people in the business. Of course, customers are as well, but, franchisees are really important and to keep that relationship going and communication. Yeah, valuable lesson.
Yeah. Me and my director of operations, we used to say this. This was like the early years when we weren't getting out there enough to our local locations. And we would say, like, if there was when we had like our annual meeting, let's say it was in July, we could feel it as the months were leading up to it. Like, we need this just so we're together again, because we can feel a little bit of the push pull was getting a little bit too much pull and not enough push between franchisor or franchisee. And once we got together and we were in the same room, it's like all the air got let out, all the stress left. And it was a reminder of how important it is for us to be together. And it was a very valuable lesson for us. But like you said, we get caught up in running our business day to day, and we have to just remember they are most important. Because if we take care of our franchise owners, they'll take care of the customers.
100%. And it comes from the top too, right? You got to all the way top down, right? Got to be what you want your franchisees to be.
Yeah. So you've got a number of competitors in your business, and I'd like to talk to you a little bit about what trends are you seeing in your industry? Where do you think this kind of business was 10 years ago? Where do you think it is now? And where do you think it's going and shifting?
Well, pets in general, so not even just direct customers to me or pet competitors to me, pets in general is a booming industry. It always has been, but since COVID or starting around COVID times, like it has exploded. So people didn't go have babies during COVID, which is interesting because before in those types of things, wars, things like that, people have babies. Nope, they had dogs. So there's the dogs and a lot of like doodles, especially doodles are like a massive thing on the market and people don't understand. They actually have to be groomed. It's a health thing. So that in itself is growing. But, I think one of the biggest things I have noticed, and one of the things I love about my brand is the humanization of pets. So how they're treated, what they eat, things like that. So for us, it's a pet spa day, right? They come in room. They're not taken in the back room and scrubbed down and nobody can see what's happening and then they're not going home all stressed. I have videos. These dogs are happy as little clams to come into my stores, right? Super excited. They're going to get pampered and get facials and stuff like that. And then the humanization of the products, the food, it's now human grade, right? That's important. CBD products for anxiety. Dogs get stressed too, or have health problems or have pains and they can't communicate, right? So I would say those are the biggest. I'm sure there's many more, but I would say those are the biggest things I pay attention to.
Yeah, well, maybe it's more than 10 years ago, but the bakery side of the business certainly wasn't a thing many years ago. It was far and few between.
Yeah, it's interesting. We literally have like birthday cupcakes, like actual cupcakes, they're dog. I wouldn't want to eat one. I mean, I could, but I wouldn't want to. I don't like the flavors,
Right.
But cupcakes and cakes and like donuts and, that wasn't a thing you couldn't find them back then.
Do you anticipate any other trends that the pet business is going into, that where it is today? Do you see anything different happening tomorrow in the next 5-10 years? Where do you see it going?
I think it's going to progress more towards the humanization. I think that's going to be big. I think France. So France is very well known, like Paris specifically, is very well known for, you'll see lots of dogs at restaurants everywhere. You'll see dogs everywhere. They're better behaved than children. They don't take their children out. They take their dogs. People are probably going towards that way. And if it comes to products and things like that, everything will kind of like sprout off of that. So whether it's humanization products and, better ability to get the human grade products and the collars, even the collars, everything, right? It all more tech based. So I think it's all going to kind of flow in that direction.
It bodes well for your company and the industry in general. I think I saw something on your site. It was like 63.4 million households have at least one dog.
Usually more.
Okay, let's talk about the expansion of Salty Dawg and how do you decide and evaluate which markets you want to get into for expansion? Because we say everybody's got dogs and the amount of households that have them, but there has to be something other than population that probably excites you and your team about what markets you want to get into.
Yeah, so we have a great our real estate vendor who also does our mapping and stuff like that, has all this amazing data. I love it so much. So I actually look at markets that are already very dog friendly, right? So dog friendly, and I don't mean ranch dogs. Ranch dogs are amazing and sometimes they're our clients, but I mean dog friendly, like it's part of the family unit. They're literally thought of as another family member. That's where we're looking at. And those are often places where people are more health conscious or into fitness, health conscious, health and wellness type, ideas and things like that, where the locations actually go are in centers where you would find maybe a Trader Joe's or a Whole Foods or something like that, where that customer is the same. Our customers we share that same person, because the person going there, they want products and food items that are, human grade and non-grain and all the things, right? So that's the same person.
So if somebody that is psychodemographically speaking, a very high quality product, they have to have a lot of confidence in a product or service.
Yeah, a little bit more higher end. And it tends to be a younger group. It tends to be more the millennial and Gen Zs, or not Gen Zs, Gen X. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. In terms of the expansion of the business, one of the things that the statistic that I talk about this stat often on the podcast, and I'm curious to get your feedback since you've been in the industry for a bit, is why so many franchisors struggle with getting to that, that magical 100 unit mark. And of course, we know it has nothing to do with the number of units we sell. It has everything to do with being royalty self-sufficient. But what are your thoughts on why so many franchisors stall out? I mean, you were a franchise supplier for years too, so you dealt with a lot of brands. Why do you think so many of these emerging founders they don't get there and they hit a wall?
Yeah, gosh, that's a lot. I got a lot of information on that. So I've worked with thousands of brands and seen a lot, right? I think one of the biggest issues is when they first come in as a franchisor, it's lack of a few things: resources, whether it's money, capital, or human capital, which is really important, and then just knowledge in general, right? So they come in, they franchise, okay, yay, this is how we're going to leverage other people's money to become a franchise, and open more locations. That's great. What they don't understand is now they have two businesses. They've got their consumer side of the business and they've got the franchise, and they don't know anything about what it takes to be a franchise. They got to learn all that. They might not find a good advisor or something like that, right? They may be undercapitalized. Most of them are undercapitalized. Then they tend to, because they're undercapitalized, they tend to sign up anybody and everybody right away because they need money. They need money coming in to keep things going. When you do that and you don't vet out your franchise partner and make sure they're the right fit, especially for an emerging brand, like you need entrepreneurs that to work with an emerging brand. If you're a bigger brand, it's a different kind of person, right? So if they get the wrong person, they don't have their systems, their processes, all of those things set up, like they don't have their base set up, then it just starts to crumble, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, they kind of have 1 foot in franchising and 1 foot out. And if they're still focused on the consumer side, it's very easy for them to give up and say, well, this didn't turn out the way I wanted it, because like you said, it is two separate businesses. And one of the things I've tried to share repeatedly with people that are even interested in franchising is to tell them that whatever business you were in, you're no longer in that business. You are now in the franchise business, and you have one job, and that is to make your franchisees successful and certainly want them to be happy and fulfilled.
100%. And, they didn't realize also that, it's going to, the first 5 years are going to be a lot. You need to prepare for that, whether it's time-wise or financially or whatever. It's going to be a lot. It takes a lot to build a franchise system. It's going to be amazingly rewarding too. But the first 5 years, if you can mentally set yourself up for it, it's better. But most people don't know that. They have no idea. So how can they mentally prepare?
I'm glad you said that. I don't think anybody's on the show, if anybody I've interviewed, has actually come out and said the first 5 years and how challenging it is. And you're absolutely right. The first 5 years for me at I-9 was very challenging, and it took a toll on me. And I think when I got towards the 5th year, we had already gotten to 100 locations, but still we had not really turned the corner yet. The problem is that when you get to that 4th year, you don't know when you're going to get to, you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. You just look back in the rearview mirror and you're like, I've been doing this and struggling for 4 years. When is it going to get better? Little do you know, or little do any of us know, because we don't obviously know the future, is that the success and that tipping point is literally right around the corner. And if you're doing all the right things and your franchisees will start getting that critical mass of business, then you'll be royalty self-sufficient. You'll have your systems and processes better be already intact. Otherwise, you've gotten exposed already and have been in trouble. But it's a different game once you get through that 5 years, if you can just stick with it.
And that's why having the right people with you on that ride too is important, right? At the franchise level, the right franchise partners, but also the right employees, right? I need people that are passionate. It's really hard to find people that think like business owners when they're not. Almost impossible. I would say 1% of people are, or maybe I'm being too pessimistic, might be 10%, I'm not sure, but it's a small percentage, and you need that passion and people that will drive it forward.
Yeah. And most of us that franchise, we have taken our staff with us from our original company, and they don't have franchise experience either.
Yeah.
So now collectively, we're a big group of people who don't know a thing about franchising.
Yep. That's a problem. You gotta get people with some knowledge in there.
Yeah. You do have to have the right mix for sure. Sally, when you're talking to people about becoming a franchise owner of Salty Dawg and they're doing the due diligence, I'm sure you want to share with them, you're very honest and transparent about what this is and what this isn't, because we don't want there to be any surprises. What are some of the things that you recommend to people when they're doing their due diligence so that there are clear expectations about Salty Dawg and the franchise opportunity?
Oh, I think it's just the basics, right? Vet. Go talk to my franchisees. I may not have a lot of them. Go talk to my franchisees. Look into our backgrounds, the founders and, the people that acquired us, loyalty brands and their team, and talk to them. I do give them homework. Not me personally, my team, we give them homework and things like that, especially when it comes to pets and their local markets and things like that. I would give them homework to look at and go into the store and touch and feel it, because you do need to touch and feel it, right?
Yeah, we want to set the right expectations for people. Because it's a marriage essentially, right, between the franchisor and franchisee for a long time. So we want to make sure people know what they're getting themselves involved with.
We do meet with them. So, I mean, we go through the franchise sales process. I will personally meet with them one-on-one. And then John Hewitt, the founder of Loyalty Brands, will also meet with them one-on-one. So and sometimes even he'll get to be able to have dinner with them and things like that. But they get a chance to ask all those questions. Please ask the questions. I'll be transparent with you. I'll share, we're an emerging brand. I'll share our background and, our vision and all those things. Please ask those questions, and I will repeatedly ask them to. Because sometimes they get nervous, I'm talking to the CEO or, oh, I'm talking to John Hewitt. Wow, geez, I'm nervous.
Right.
So we really try to, make it an inviting environment for them to be able to ask those questions.
Okay. Well, you've worked with so many brands, not just working for a brand, but working with brands. And like I said earlier, you've kind of seen the probably good, bad, and ugly of brands. If you were going to become a franchisee of a business, of a franchise itself, what would be maybe some of the most important elements that you would look for?
Well, first of all, I'd be the worst franchisee on the planet. Okay, we got to tell this. Let's do this and this.
I'm not following anybody's rules, by the way. So I'm the problem already. I'm well aware of that.
I'm a renegade. What can I say? So what I would look for, first of all, I need something that fits my personality and my passion, right? I am not that person. I would be a terrible McDonald's franchisee. McDonald's is amazing. You put one on a corner and everybody and their brother comes, right? It's going to happen. But I like to innovate. So I'm going to look for what fits my personality. There's also these great tools out there that people can use for this with brokers, and Zoracle's an amazing system. But I would personally go out there and look, okay, knowing that I'm an entrepreneur, knowing that I'm a renegade, knowing that I want to be involved and I'm passionate about what can I make a difference? I want to make a difference, right? What brand can I make a difference in? Which means an emerging brand. Typically, you can do they fit my skill sets personally? Some people are more marketing and sales focused. Some people are more data and accounting like focused. What fits that? If it's the personality that needs a sales driven person and it's an accountant who doesn't like to be in front of people, and not all accountants are like this, but just saying, not a match, right? So
that's a problem. Yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, Sally, if someone was interested in learning more about Salty Dawg and the franchise opportunity, where would they get more information?
Well, they can go to our website, Salty Dawg, DAWG, petsalon.com or just saltydawg.com, and they can fill out a form there and it'll go right to our team and somebody will follow up them right away.
Sweet. All right. I finish every podcast episode with the franchise tip jar because, like you said earlier, the industry is so generous with sharing information. So I was hoping maybe you can give a piece of advice here. Before somebody actually franchised their company, what would be a piece of advice that you would give to the entrepreneur before they step into this crazy industry?
I think that they should go to industry conferences like IFA, Springboard, Multi-Unit, different conferences, get an understanding, see it, go to the sessions, right? Because there is no better place to really understand what does it mean to be in franchising. And they're going to see, is it a fit or not? And they can ask questions of so many experts, at those type of events. And they can meet potentially advisors or consultant companies that can help them franchise the business and not lose a lot of money along the way, making a lot of mistakes,
Sweet. I agree with you 100%. Well, Sally, thank you so much for being on the show today. This was great. I wish you continued success with Salty Dawg, and you guys are going to be growing this thing out big time.
Wait on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.